Okay, here we go. TruongT is a poet and visual artist. His publications include the Book of Perceptions, Placing the Accents, Dust and Conscience, awarded the San Francisco Poetry Center Book Prize. Within the Margin and Four-Letter Words. Truong lives in San Francisco, where he is currently teaching poetry at SFSU and Mills College. Please welcome Truong.
Carolyn. Drop it low. Low enough. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I ran out of the house today to do this reading, and there are a couple of things that are always in my bag. Some poems, a ball. A ball, please. There are always balls in my bag. I'm not kidding. Full of ping pong balls.
I'll take some balls, please.
Balls in the back.
Not a baseball player.
All right. My apologies for that. All right. I'm going to read a poem that no one would publish except for Matt Sherling. So I want to say thank you. And I wrote this poem and I read it at an eco-poetics reading. And Paul was there, and Robert Haas was there, actually. And I couldn't help but think that Robert Haas was thinking that I was directing this poem at him, so I had to apologize afterwards. But I just want to say that it's not directed at anyone here. The nature of things. It was in an English class in the 11th grade, third period. I sat in the far left row in a classroom in a portable out by the football field. I sat in the second to last seat behind a tall guy named Rob, whose brother years later would be eaten by a shark off the coast of Santa Cruz. To my left was a fat guy named Vincent, who drove a Trans Am that he could barely fit into. It's important that I get this right down to the last detail, because it was in the 11th grade in my third period English class that the teacher, Mr. Allen, said tuberculosis was on the rise because immigrants were on the rise. They spat on sidewalks, and during the hot months of April, May, June, July, the sun would evaporate spit on the sidewalks, and the wind would scatter it into the air. The stats on TV were on the rise because we were all breathing the same air. It is important that I get this right, because it was in my third period in an English class in my 11th grade that he said TB was on the rise, and I was sitting in a classroom in a portable out by the football field. The tall guy farted and blamed it on the fat kid sitting in the seat to the left of me. The fat kid decided he was going to blame it on me. It was in the far left row in the second to last seat in the English class in the third period of the 11th grade that I saw snow for the first time. It is important that I get this right. It was snowing in November in San Jose. It was beautiful sitting in that seat in the far left row in the third period of English class, looking out the window. I remember saying, "Go fuck yourself." It is important that I get this right, because in my 11th grade English class, I told the tall guy and the fat guy and the guy I referred to as Mr. Allen to go fuck yourself. It was in a single sentence stated just loud enough. It was meant to be a shared experience. In the 11th grade, in the third period of an English class, I was kicked out of school for the duration of a week, because in the 11th grade I said, "Go fuck yourself," in an English class. In the third period, I remember walking home. It was a fall day, and the leaves were changing colors, and it snowed that day. I remembered, because it never snows in San Jose. I remember thinking it was beautiful but strange, the changing of the leaves and the falling of the snow. It was beautiful that fall day. I'm not really prepared, so I'm just going to open this and start reading. I will end on a few poems about erasing oneself. This is a dedication to the book. This book is for my cousin Nort, who works at a triangle sandwich factory making the kind of sandwiches one buys from vending machines. This book is for his commitment to making delicious, nutritious sandwiches. But even more importantly, this book is for the people who eat the sandwiches, because they deserve delicious, nutritious sandwiches free of preservatives. This is an overt omission of the interior. It is written from the outside for public consumption. Full of gumption, it is written in the hopes of finding and in committing sins along the way. You're doing it again. Doing what? You know, that thing you do. What thing? That thing that drives me crazy. I'm just saying, can't we talk about something else? Like porn, you're always looking at porn. That's not true. I'm looking for porn. There's a big difference. A whisper, not a shout, finds its way through time into a book. Through the eyes, a whisper, not a shout, finds its way to the lips. Stop, look, listen. He is saying something. He is undressing in the window. As in the apple shined and given the whole, the evidence of the worm's entry always concealed to the other's view, as in the smile that conceals the steady hand's desire, the eye's concentration, the finger's surrender to pull the trigger, as in the need to ask why, the answer's obvious, as in waking and breathing and breaking bowls and sweeping up the shards in a moment of clarity. Indulge me this one time and try something new, not really new, but strange to the skin. Not really skin, but language as skin. I can't get the image of me throwing a ball and hitting someone out of my head, so I apologize yet again. I think that was only a ping pong ball. Joe, I know you were responsible for that.
I'm mostly responsible.
The goose was fed and fed and fed. When it could no longer eat, it was force-fed yet again. If tomorrow were my last day, I would choose foie gras as my last meal. I am entitled to this. It is a delicacy. I read it in a book. I imagine its cruel complexity melting on my tongue. Such is the arrival of the perfect line. I am entitled to this. And this is from the Book of Lies. This is a chronicle written where English is broken, sorted, salvaged, and saved for consumption. In time, it will be adopted as a delicacy. Please understand that the metaphor, when used here, is used out of necessity. A grain of rice before all else is really just that, a grain of rice. That's striving for clarity, looking for an audience, wanting to be heard. This goes against the nature of things. I started crossing into visual art, so I started writing poems as visual arts. And this is one of those pieces. This is a chicken in a line in a poem, that's the story. This is the story of a chicken in a line that's a wire. This is the story of a chicken on a wire, a chicken that's a bird. This is the story of a bird on a wire. I'm just saying that porn is poem, the poem is false. You're doing it again. Doing what exactly? Exactly that thing. It's in there. In where? The poem? No, in there. You're doing it again. I just can't help it. Do we have to go there? It's just that the room is filled with books, rows upon rows that I myself alphabetize. I shelved every book in my eagerness to come in. Walls upon walls of all kinds of porn. But he will build a house without doors, that those who enter will lose their way, that in the finding they will call it home. You're doing it again. Doing what exactly? What's done is done. But there through the window I see an abundance of language. Language like fruit waiting to be picked, peeled and pickled, just waiting to be shared. Porn at the farmer's market and on the net. Talk about abundance, pickled porn. Now that's an idea. Eventually, everyone shares their stash of porn. But there's no sharing. It's just the illusion of sharing. Just as there's no entering, just the illusion of inside. It's kind of like porn or leaving a zucchini on your neighbor's porch and declaring it a holiday. It's all an illusion. I'm not talking about porn, can't you see? I'm looking. Have you seen my family? All right, just a couple more from here and then. I'm looking for, it is about this tall, weighing no more than, say, it was last seen wandering the halls, that forbidden house. I'm not allowed to. I know. I've been warned. It's all my fault. Allowing it to. So now it is lost. Or at least, I worry for that it has been abducted, locked away, starved, deprived in an attic, in mine. I worry that I will begin to hear at nights its cries, I worry, will render me helpless. I just hope that there's a reward, a bag of marbles, a handful of sand, a magic string. It's magic I know, I do not know. But I've been told it's all that I have. It's all that it's worth. This much I know. When last seen, it was said to be wearing a sweater green, sprinkled with snowflakes, a reindeer's head mounted to the chest, a trucker's cap, words that read, "Go fuck yourself." I meant to say, please pass the butter. I have been working on this project. I've become known as the writer who doesn't really write. What I've been doing is actually erasing. So I have 5 books that I'm going through and erasing. When I was a student at State, I was the hood recipient, and somehow I was writing about cooking. And someone who's no longer here, but one of my professors, wrote an articulation of my work for the hood recipient, and somehow he said that my father was a cook, and my mother nearly had a heart attack in the audience when she heard that, because my father being an officer, that's what my mother holds on to as the pride of her identity. And so to say my father was a cook made my mother go into this fit, almost a heart attack. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and what it meant to be a writer in that time. So to address it now, I'm going back and erasing myself. And it makes people very uncomfortable, but it's something that I feel like I need to do. So this is from the book, my very first book, called Placing the Accent. and it's now called placate. Bury the shoulder for travel need, loaves. We're going, she insisted, on. She sold. She promised she would. Keep the gun. Don't. We're going. Stories were bricks. Bricks break a window. A house. Prayers printed before paper. Stipend by the time. Father says. To cut without clinging accommodates. I watched the way my mother spoke. I watched fluttering parts of a prayer. I learned. I found, if only for a moment. I whispered in his ear. Awkward lips. Lips I found in a box. I dreamt you were having Walt Whitman for the first time. I did in a language. In that particular poem, I actually wrote 20 years ago about this idea of having tea with Walt Whitman. I was quite infatuated with Walt Whitman. 20 years later, I look back on this poem and I realized I wanted to write a poem about fucking Walt Whitman. So I did that. Direction. A self-taught eye. I made a point, learned the word fuck, learned it from a boy, lit it with a match. The word fuck, a word used with, at, of, began inside the sister at a corner. Memories, the brother waits in motion. The mother, so the father, began on this day for duration. Referring to you could not be done before breaking in threes. My English, my tongue, stitch, thread, men. I wait at night when haunting begins. She must be praying. The walls are thin. Peaches falling. The hidden space between. Pictures about doing things. Each word a grain of this ghost at the door, quivering behind. If anything, I will. Words in a language she finds refuge in not knowing. And not, I swear, not. Eat as though there is slow salt. Of pepper, patience, a knife divides. When eating the other, it's not about choosing. The hand outstretched, fan before his face, holding as if. In your direction, an empty chair. On your behalf, a subtle jest. You were, there was, beneath the gills. She insisted on the kind that bruised, thorn, tipped, lips collapsing. She crushed the seeds, rubs it to her nipples, says it was not meant to. She tells me, as proof, the women wear teardrops. Sit, salt, still, too much, and then what? Summer, when she prepares, when placed at the porch, when beyond this door lives all that is needed. Please do not enter it. The aftertaste I took for taking, her wishes as if would break at the touch. Was once it fell, an apple from a mouth. She heard a thud. He woke in French. She shouted. He smiled. Thank you.